install Python and I did everything PyCharm also. Even onto the interpret also we can see these two lines, one under program, one under Microsoft.
Yeah.
And even if I go also here, I think here we have some edit, right?
Yeah, you
Edit.
configure.
Yeah, here also we can see two. Yeah, here it is coming PyCharm. So my question was like why, like here it is fine, but why it is coming like this? Like we have two lines, like one under programs, one under Microsoft.
It is a possibility that might in your system there is Python 2 installed already. It is a possibility because Python from everywhere. You just have to
Mm.
uninstall it from everywhere where you have seen the
Yeah,
location. You have to
yeah. So
delete it and
yeah,
reinstall it. You'll get
mhm.
only once.
No, no,
So
I
there is a
did that.
possibility of Python already live.
Okay, so I was just confused, why it was coming two times, but that is fine.
It's
Yeah,
not an issue. It's not an
yeah,
issue. You just can use whichever Python you want to use. Current version you can use three. Python 3 is the more used version these days, so you can
right,
use that as compared to Python 2 because it's
right,
not having that much functionality as compared to this.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
And last second from the day two, there was one question, when I was entering like this, okay, you added this one. No? Actually, for you, code was working. For me, it was not working. Then what I did, I put here self.print. It was giving some warning to me actually here.
By entering self.print.
No, no, no. It was, when I did it like this, I'm not sure if I can repeat the. Okay, let me take. Can I take the code from here? Otherwise, like here is the
Yeah.
code. Because I know like sometimes it creates some problem. So we need to create a Python file, right? So let me put right now. And this is we need to give it in camel case like A capital, C also capital. Class name, do we need to give as like this or?
The first letter is small. Rest you can apply the chemicals.
Okay. So like this, we need to end tab, na?
Yeah. The function name needs to be separate.
Sorry.
Space in the keyword def and the function
Oh,
name
sorry.
needs a
Yeah,
space.
because I copied. Oh, yeah. Okay. Demo class. Okay,
It
class.
needs
Yeah, space.
a pair of
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah. Now here you can see it was coming like this yesterday actually when I was running. Let's say I want to run function one, right? Control Shift F10, right? So it is giving some error, right? Everything is fine, but here you see expected one blank line found zero and method function may be static. What should, let me reformat the file and then also let me see here nothing. Yeah. So yeah, this was the confusion, like why it is not running. Function one
Yeah.
missing one
Scroll
required
down.
positional. Sorry.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
Over here, when you are calling the function at
Mm,
line number 15,
mm.
over here the object needs to be created first and then you have to call the function. This demo
Uh,
class is the name of your class. Right.
right. So
You have to make the object of it by adding it by following it with a pair of parentheses. It's not required if you're not using it again. If you're not reusing it, you can remove the reference.
mhm,
Whatever you have entered now, you remove this.
mhm.
Yeah. Now, where your name of the class is ending, just add a pair of parentheses.
Here
Demo
you're telling.
class. Yeah. Now, what is the
See.
reason behind is that this is a class. Whenever we make a class, a constructor is there, but it's not
Yeah, default.
optional. But however,
Yeah.
when we run the code, the interpreter looks for a constructor that whether you are giving some of the parameter in the function in the object making or you are not. If you're not passing anything, It means that it is a default constructor, be it used in your code, be it not used in your code. It will ask you to provide a parenthesis so that object can be created. Now, if you
Right.
run this, it won't give you any error. It will run.
Let me do it. Yeah, now it is working. Maybe yesterday I was missing on this parenthesis.
Yes, this is
Okay.
required because this is the creation of the object. It was not creating an object. However, it was thinking that demo class dot function. It is the name of the class. And at the
Mhm.
end of the parenthesis, it was looking for an keyword.
So with this, we are kind of creating the runtime object with this line,
Yeah,
or like you mentioned, the term hanging object, right?
hanging on. Because we
Okay.
cannot reuse the same stored value if I'm storing some value in function one. I won't be
Mm,
able to restore it because this object does not have any of the reference from where I can extract it. Right. So that is why we do make a reference so that we can store the values and extract them, reuse the object. For such purposes, we make a object and a reference to.
right, right. And why could not working? Okay. And yesterday you mentioned here we need to remove this particular stuff, then it will.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. When let's say yesterday you mentioned, okay, we need to install PyTest. First we did pip install PyTest onto the command prompt. Then we went into the package also, and from the file settings also we did. So do we
Hmm.
need to do, what is the difference? Like one we are doing through the command prompt, we are installing the package, then we are adding that package specifically inside our mm,
I'll
project.
tell you.
Yeah.
Whatever projects we make in this IDE, they
Mm,
all are specific to the files that you add. Right. If you
right.
want to use the file Selenium in your package, in your project, then it is in your system. That is needed because we need to have in a
Okay.
system.
Hmm.
When we add that package in our project, that means I'm going to use Selenium in this package. There could be another package where I'm not using Selenium. That's just a Python package that I have made. That's totally
Makes.
different.
Hmm.
Right. So whenever it starts looking for the package Selenium, when we give the command selenium.version, suppose. So what
Hmm.
it does is it starts looking for the Selenium package, that whether the package lies so that I can give the version or not. If your project does not have that Selenium in your system, in your project, it will give you an error that there is no such module, there is no
Hmm.
such package.
Right, right.
So that's why here it is needed, because projects are specific to the files that you add.
Hmm.
And why
Good.
is it necessary to install or download the packages in your system? That is why, because sometimes what happens is that we just add the package in our project itself,
Hmm.
but they are not in the system if I have to run it from my command prompt, the Selenium code or PyTest code, whatever code I want to run. That's
Right.
not in my system, but in my project. So I will get the error on the command prompt that
Hmm.
yes, this file does not exist. This is an external or internal command which is not recognized.
Right,
So
right,
that
right.
kind of error comes. So we
Got
have to keep it balanced in both the forms, that it works here as well, it works there as well.
it. Hmm. Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. And here, like these are nothing but these are the classes like app class, browser, oops, right? These are nothing but the, I should say in Python language as classes, or should I say Python file?
I can find.
Python file. And here naming
You can
convention
make
is
number of classes in a single file. In the
number
demo
of.
class beneath it, you can make more classes as well. So these are Python files.
Okay, here also. But here
Yeah.
name is different. Here name is different. Is it acceptable or is it the like what is the recommended way?
Okay. I give you an example. Suppose
Mm,
I have first file of my making in Python. It is my
mm-hmm,
very first file, right? So I'll name it as first file.
mm-hmm.
For my reference that I have to recollect that file, I'll just name it as first file.
Here,
Inside that first file,
yeah,
no,
top.
here. Now, when I have to write inside the code, inside this file, I have to write it. In
Mm-hmm,
here, I have to make different test cases, suppose.
mm-hmm,
So what I will do is I'll make a class, let's say this demo class,
mm-hmm.
right? Inside this, I'll make the demo. I'll make my test cases. Then I remember that yes, I have to make one more test case, but that is different from these test cases that I have made. So I will make one more class inside this first file one. Here only I'll make the another.
Okay, we can do that way.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. So
It's
within
just
one,
the file. Like we name files, like we have pictures, and we save name like, yes, these are my personal pictures. These are my office work pictures.
right, right.
Like that, this is folder. So it is a file.
This is nothing but a file, and
Yes,
within
it's a
file
file.
we can within file we can have a classes,
Yes.
multiple classes,
Classes, functions, variables, test cases, test classes,
and
whatever you
here,
want to have.
right, this file name can be lowercase. Is there any standard, or is it can be anything? Like here I given the camel case.
The the first character of the file name should be smaller one, and rest you
Okay,
can follow the camel case name.
okay. And but what the class? Again,
That is
uppercase,
supposed to be the camel case.
uppercase with starting with.
Camel case, yeah.
Okay. And here still I'm getting one warning method function one maybe static.
If you make this function static, static is something that is going to be common for the whole class.
Right, right.
It will be common. So if you
Mm-hmm.
want to make it static, if you change inside it as well, if you make some kind of changes, that will be common to the whole class.
Right, right.
If you want to make it, you can. Otherwise, it's not suggested to make any function or class static. If you want, you can. There is no restriction on making it.
Got it, got it. Sure,
Yeah.
I got it. Let me stop sharing my screen, but thank you for all this help.
No issues. So we'll start with the topic that we are supposed to cover in this session. Today, basically, what I wanted to start with that how to start our main objective of automating a browser. Right. Now we have seen in the earlier sessions that how to open a browser. We very well know how to open the browser. We know the command. Now on the command, on that after opening the browser, what I'm supposed to do? I need to go to some URL. Right. I need to go to some website so that I can start automating that website. So how to do that? How to go there? The that command is a very simple command. It's a one word command that you need to use. So let's see. Will make file. Let's say in this, we know the command, how to go to the URL. So I'll just will open up any browser that I want to open. I will like to go with you get so many options from here. You need to know which one do you want to import. We import the common one. We don't go into the browsers packages. We just install this one. We just import this one so that I can use rest of the functions as well. So Selenium dot, let's say I want to open Firefox browser. On this Firefox browser, let's say I want to suppose get to the official website of Selenium itself. So what I'll do is I'll use this reference, the reference I have made for this object. I'll use this and I'll say driver dot get. That's the function. Inside this get, the command that you have to, the argument that you have to provide is the URL that you want to visit to. So I'll say selenium.dev. That's the official name, right? So I'll save this code and I'll run this once. It came up over here. Now it's navigating me to the site that I have given, the URL that I have given. Right. This way my browser is open and I'm to a website. This way you can open up any website that you want to go on. You can just need to give the URL over here. It will take you to that particular URL. Right. Now after this, After this, what we need to do? We are here at the website. Now what? What do you think? What next will be?
Yeah, we need to perform some action on to this particular application.
Yes,
We
we
may,
need to perform something. So to perform something, I need to interact with the elements on this page. With whatever is on this page, I need to interact with it. Whether I have to select this to copy it somewhere or to read it somewhere, I need to click on this link over here, which is available. I need to click on this link. I have to go on and see whatever I have to scroll the page. So I have different actions which I can perform on the sheet. But to interact with the elements, how will I be able to interact with these? I need to know what this element is. I need to understand what this element is. If I can see it is SE, what it is an image. I can see it is an image. But how to make my code understand that yes, you have to interact with this link. You have to take out the URL of this image, or you have to read the text of this image. So how to do that? Now that is what next we need to understand. So I'm going to take a simpler website which will be easier to use, and we'll have a number of elements, a number of different elements so that we can access it. Right. So I'll take it as, let me open it on Chrome. I'm going to take this website itself. This one. This is the URL I'm going to take. On this URL, you can see there are a number of elements that I have. I have a link over here. If I'll click on this link, I'll be routed to the home page. If I'll click to this, I'll go to the Python portal. Same way, I have these links over here. This is the link, this is a text, this is an image. This is basically a video over which a thumbnail has been applied. Then I have this button over here. And then these are some text boxes over here. Right, I know what these elements are, but I need to make my code understand. So how to do that? What I'll do is, whichever element I want to interact with, suppose I want to interact with this link, let's say this link. So what I'll do is I'll right click over to this link and I'll go to this option inspect. Let me just open it in the different view. Yeah. So over here, where I have clicked, I have chosen this element which I need to be using. This element, if we see, there is a highlighted portion which corresponds to this element, which is linked to this element. It shows me a number of things, that there is what this is a href, there is a class, then equals to, it might be the name of this element, then all and all and all. Right. But what are these? I need to understand this now. That what different elements have these data as. So one by one, we will be understanding it. I'll make a table out so that we can store the information what we go through. Okay, this is asking me to activate this account, but it's not working, it's activity. Why is it asking me to do so? See if I have some access. It's not letting me do it over here. I'll activate it later on. Let's just use something else over here. Let's use whether I'll be able to do it on it or not. So getting the same thing. Work.
Just try with Notepad++. Otherwise, if you want to type something,
Yeah. Just start. Yeah. So over here, firstly, we will note down all the element names that we frequently get to access. So what those names are, basically we get to see the text on the website, the text box on the website, buttons, radio buttons, and we have links. Is what else? What else are the elements that we frequently get to see? Check boxes I have done with links. Okay, if we get more, we'll add it over here. Now we need to understand it one by one. We'll start with the text box, the basic one. Now every element that you see, it comprises of three main attachments. One is the type of that element. What is the type of the element? I'll tell you what it is. Second is the mandatory attribute that will come with the element. Always it will come. And another one is the optional attribute. We'll talk about the type and the mandatory attribute first, and then we'll move on to the optional one. Let's talk about the text box first. And what our text box is, we'll go to this website and we'll look for the text box. We have the text box on this page. So I'll right click on the text box. I'll go to inspect and it will highlight the following code in the designing, which corresponds to this text box. So if you can see it over here, right over here, the first thing that I get over here is input. The text name is input over here. Why it might have been given input? Because it's accepting something from the user. I'll enter something and that will be sent at the backend. So that's why input name has been given. Then the type. Then you can see the parameter itself, type. What kind of element this is? This is a text element. We are supposed to enter text in this particular element. So we can say that for text box, the type is text. Then after, over here, we have, this is a mandatory attribute. Along with this, the input is the type. Input is the type that we get. Why is it been? We have taken that in count. And then I have it as the mandatory attribute. And mandatory attribute is going to be the same for all elements that you see, and that will be type. The value to it can be changed. Right now it is text. Maybe when I'm talking about the button, the type value is changed to something else, say button or radio button, anything like that. But this type will always be with the element. Okay. Then we have some of the parameters, name, class, ID, placeholders. These all are not compulsory. These are all are optional. But out of these all, we'll take three which are common for all the elements, right? But I'll come to that later. What are the optional attributes? Right now, let's just talk about the elements one by one to take the mandatory order. Now we have button. So let's see what the button says. I have this button over here, which is the contact us button. If I'll inspect this, I'll get the information for this button. Now you can see over here that the type has been changed to button from input. It's not taking any input. It's just a button which is going to take a lot of data whenever it's being pressed, right? So type will be button, and what the mandatory attribute will be, as I said earlier, that the mandatory attribute is going to be type itself. Value for this can change. For this button, it is submit. For some buttons, it could be buttons itself. It's up to the designer what it gives, but the type attribute will be like this, right? So for buttons, we have seen it would have looked better if we could have Excel, but I need to maybe reactivate the account or something. So let's see. For buttons, we have seen the type is button, and then we have seen that type of it is submit, or it could be button. Now taking a look at the radio buttons. Now over here, if you see on this page, I don't have any radio button. So let's take some another website. Let's say facebook.com. We'll get the option to choose the gender. So over here, yeah. These are the radio buttons that I have. Radio buttons have these property that one only can be selected from the whole group, which has been given, which from all the options, one could be given, one could be selected. So if I inspect this radio button, what do I get is the type again has been came to input because it is also collecting some input. So it is input, and the mandatory attribute is type again, but the value to it has been changed to radio. Okay, that is in the case of radio buttons. The type was input again, and mandatory attribute came out to be radio. So next is the checkbox. Here, do we have any checkbox? I don't think so. So we'll take another website to get the checkbox also. Let's say fail. Yeah, over here I have a checkbox, this checkbox. So if I inspect this checkbox over here, the information for this element will come. The type is input for this again, but the mandatory attribute value has been changed from buttons, radio buttons to checkbox. The name of the element itself it's coming as. So come up over here, input, and the mandatory attribute is changed to. Now these are the same kind of elements. Text box is taking some input, buttons is collecting some data and sending it further. Radio buttons are collecting some data, checkbox is collecting some data. Now the next two elements, the link and the images. These are totally different from the above four that we have discussed. Why so? Because links basically take you to some another page after clicking. Might be you are on the same page, but it's going to be having some address where it needs to take you after clicking, right? So if we see over here on this site, I have a number of links available. So over here, let's say I just click on this element, or let's say this one. I'll click on this element on this link and I inspect this. What do I get over here? First of all, I'm getting A. This A is basically called the anchor tag, which is for representation of a link. So it will be a type parameter for the link. Now, when we talk about the mandatory attributes, mandatory attribute is basically going to hold the link address where you are going to be navigated after clicking on. So over here, href is the mandatory attribute, and the value to it will be the link of the next page. So here it will be mandatory attribute is going to be href. The same way is the images. If we talk about some image on the page, so let's say this is an image, this is the logo image. If I inspect this, what do I get? The type is img, the short of image. Very clear enough. And the mandatory attribute is going to be the location or the link from where this image is being taken from. If it is taking from the Google images, then the Google images address will come up over here. If you have kept it on some drive or something, that address will come up over here. But the source image is the mandatory tag over here, and it will collect the value from where that image is being taken. Okay.
So what do we say
And
here? So what exactly is IMG? Is it the attribute or is it a tag? Oh,
it is a attribute itself. It is the name of the element that has been given.
okay.
Mandatory attribute along with this, which you will always find, is the src tag, which is the short of source. And these are the commonly found links. Now we are left with one element, which is the most common element that you will find on the page, the text, the static text, which is already inside the site itself. Whenever it's being coded, whenever it's being designed, that text is already available. Like if we talk about this tagline, Selenium, Python, and C#. If I'll click on this, it is not a dynamic text which is going to change in 2 days or 3 days. No, it's going to be in here in the website design always. Here you can see Selenium, Python, and C# training itself is coming in the inspection screen. But this text is very wide. There could be a number of tags which can be associated to define a tag. It could be any tag. Like this one is H1, right? Now, if we see more text we need to see. So this is one of the text, posters. If I inspect this, it is in some another tag, that is span tag. If I look for this one, it is also in the span tag. If we scroll down to more, this one, which is given the specification. Now it is inside the P tag, the paragraph tag. This might be in the same tag, paragraph tag. Let's look for this, top trending topics. It is in the P tag again. This one, the P tag, mostly are in the P tag. This is supposed to be in the P tag itself because it's a whole paragraph that has been given. So it is here. Likewise, all the text that you can see on the screen can have different tags given. What it could be? What is the range? It could be H1, it could be span, it could be label, could be P, could be U tag. And likewise, there are many tags which you can see prefixed before a text. So we cannot bound text in a particular type. It could be in any. Right. These are the things that we need to understand before extracting these elements to interact. Now, this is no. Now we are going to move out to the optional attributes, which is going to be the most important one. And we are going to use this in the object identification. The optional attributes, the main optional attributes which are considered are three: the class name, ID, and one more I have shown you, and that was name. These three, class, it's not class name, it's class. The optional attributes are going to be very specific. This class optional attribute, when we talk about the class optional attribute, whenever we have to identify some element, we don't look for the class attribute. Why is it so? Because the class, whichever element a class has been given, whichever element a class has been given, it's going to be the same class for another element as well, right? Why? Because the classes are responsible for the look and feel of the page. Like you can see over here to the text boxes. If I'll just inspect one of the text box, it is given a class that is form control. This is the way this name text box look. If I'll remove this, if I remove this and I save this, it's maybe not going to save it dynamically, but the look and the feel of this text box has been changed. You can see over here, the name has been scrolled to the extreme left. Earlier it was floating in the middle with some space, right? And if I see for this email text box, here it is. This email text box is also having the same class been given, form control. And all these text boxes that are being followed over here, they say they all share the same class. That's why they are looking same. They are looking exactly the same as they are being shown. Let me just change this. Now, if when I have restored the class name to this particular text box, it has taken the same shape as the another text boxes. So whenever we are identifying unique element, I just need to access this name. I'm not going to use this class attribute.
Yeah, where exactly you change this class? Just now you mentioned you're editing something
Mm-hmm. I
here
didn't get.
in the uh, like you change it here, the highlighted part class form control.
Yeah, I changed it here with the name
Okay.
text. So you
Okay, if we
yourself
do it,
has changed it, how it changed, right?
yeah. So you're saying if we change it to name, then it will look and feel will be different.
So the class name should exist in the code. Here at the right panel,
Mm-hmm.
in the styles, all the classes which are used on this website, they are being displayed. If I'll change it to any another class which is given, the look and feel will be different.
Right, right. So how did you change? Sorry, I missed on that part. Like how exactly did you change? You were saying na, like you missed
I
edited.
removed the name of the class.
Can you do it again? Just wanted to make sure I'm not missing. You're here into the input type text value required name. So if you remove this class form control, right?
Hmm.
You removed it,
Now,
right?
this is how it looks like.
Okay. You
And if
remove the
I look
complete.
for this one,
Yeah.
yeah,
So did you remove the complete line itself or only that particular attribute?
I just removed the name of the class. The attribute itself became blank. The
Okay.
attribute is still here, but it
Uh,
is not having any value to it.
oh, class is still there, but okay, got it.
Yeah. So I'll just will change it again so that it can reframe the name.
Mm-hmm.
I just added the name of the class. It's
Right.
in the original form. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why for unique element extraction, we do not use the class because it could be shared by different elements. But instead of class, ID and name, these two are such attributes which cannot be shared by any another element if it is given to one such element. Right. If I look for here for the same text box, a name has been given, which is name itself.
Mm-hmm.
The name that has been given over here, this name cannot be shared by any element on the same page again. It is unique. And same is the ID. ID once given to an element cannot be repeated again. That's the foundation that has been set for the designing part, that it cannot be shared. Same way, if I look for some another element, let's say I see it for contact number. I inspect this, it has some another ID being given. What it is? User contact number. The earlier it was username. And the name of this element is also not name, it is contact. So these optional attributes, the ID and name, they are perfect for the unique element extraction. So we will be using this only to extract. I'll show
So
you
it,
how to do that as well if I
yeah.
left with
So
some time.
so if someone is providing the same name, repeating the same name again, let's say into the name attribute ID, what will
Mhm.
happen in that case?
In that case, it can create a little confusion while we are automating it, but we can utter to that. We can just overcome that problem. There are many ways of extracting elements. Right now, I'm just tracking the direct ones through which you can interact with it. In the next class, we will discuss the another way through which if any element has the same name given or same ID given, then how to extract that one element that I want. That also we will see. Okay, it's a
Mhm.
long topic, so we are not going to discuss that in this class because it will not allow me to take that time. But however, I am going to show you that how actually we can interact with this element. Let's say I want to interact with this name text box. So how will I be able to do that? I know how to take it out, how to take it out and identify it from the page. That I know now. Now I need to see through code how I can just tell that this element has to be interactive. So I'll go to the official page of Selenium. And over here, I'll show you. Whenever you want to read any documentation for Selenium with Python, you can just come to this page. And in this section, download section, you will find these options being given according to the language. You have to go for the Python API docs. And in the API docs, go to the docs link. It gives the whole information that what classes are the main available, what are the details and everything. To open up a browser, we use the WebDriver class, right? Same way to interact with the pages with the elements, we have a different class, and that is the web element class. If I open this is the whole page you can see over here. On this page, as many as actions you can perform on the elements, they are listed. If there is a text box which already have some text, you can clear that text before and then. You want to click on some element or some link, you can click through. Then there is find element command. I'll come to this in a minute. And then I have the commands like get property. I want to get the name of that particular element. What's the name given? What's the ID given? Everything I can see. And like that, there are options. We'll use them as soon as we get the need to use them. Currently, what my need is to get that element, right? So these command over here, find element command. These are going to help you to find the element from the page by giving the particular parameter. You can see over here by it's given find element by class name. Now what does it need? By the function name itself, it's telling you that it needs the class name to be given, and it will give you all the elements. Actually, it will for one element only it's been given. So it will only give you one element. Then I have find element by, I'm not going to talk about this. We'll talk about this in the next class. Right now I have find element by ID. What this function will expect? The ID name to be given, right? Then I have the find element by name. So I will give the name over here. So let's use this and see whether we are able to find the element from the page and use it or not. Right. So over here, this was the text box. It has ID as user contact number and name as contact. So I'll go over here in my code and I'll say driver dot find element. All the options that I have shown you on the page, they are coming up over here. I need to choose which one I want to use. So I'll say I want to use find element by ID. And I'll pass on the ID that is for that element. That is this one. Since it's a text box, what I'll get, it's not having any text inside that I can read. It can just accept some parameter, right? So I will send something in this text box. I'll write something in the text box through my code. How will I be able to do that? There is a function for that, and that function is this send keys function. This send keys function will accept whatever you want to send inside, and that will be entered to the element you are given. So here I'll say dot send keys. That function came up. I'll give up over here something like the contact number. So I'll give it this, suppose. So I'll save this code. I'll run this code because I need to see that whether in the contact number block, does something gets entered or not. So over here, it's opening the browser for me, navigating me to the website, and we'll scroll down to see. Okay, I have given the wrong website. So I have given the wrong website. The website is this one. So we'll just will change this. Now, so it's taking me to the website that I have been talking about. It came down over here, and in the text box itself, it has entered what I have given in the code, that numbers, that random numbers. This way, can contact with any element by just passing the ID. You can do the same thing by passing the name attribute as well. And what the name of this element is, let's use some another text box. Let's use this one, this email. It has a name, email. So we'll copy this and I'll say find element by. Now my attribute is being changing. Now I'm not using ID, I'm using name. So I'll say find element by name and I'll pass on the name of the element, which is this. And in here, I'll pass on some email ID, let's say xyz@gmail.com. That's it. Now I'll save this and I'll rerun this. And we'll see that whether in the another text box that given data gets entered or not. So it went on. And over here, in the email text box, the mail I have given that get entered. Clear? Any question, any doubts?
No, Jaspreet.
Oh, so this is one way. This is the direct element extraction. This could be easy. In the next session, we'll see another way of extracting the elements in different scenarios, that what different scenarios can come in extraction, and then we'll understand that as. Okay. So for
Right.
this class, this is now it from my side.
Yeah. So what
Do you
is
have any
the
questions?
yeah. So what is the web driver like you mentioned there? From Selenium. Can you go back to the code once? Yeah,
Mhm.
it is from Selenium import web driver. Then what is the so Selenium here? It is the package or the requirement,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Should we say package or requirement? Selenium from
Package.
Selenium package, right? And what is web driver here?
It
Import
is a
web driver.
class.
It is a
It's a
class.
class.
And then we written WebDriver dot Firefox. So then what is Firefox here?
Firefox is also a class.
Okay, but it is coming with those braces.
Yes. Here we are just importing it. Here we are importing it, and then just with this WebDriver, there is another class available. Inside this only, it is available. You
So
can
it
see
is
class, the symbol comes up over it. That's what I'm using. The
okay. So
class.
WebDriver is also a class here, and Firefox is also a class here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And basically with this, we are creating the object of Firefox and storing inside the driver object or driver
Yeah.
variable. Can I say that driver as a variable or object?
Driver is a reference for the object.
Reference
This
for
is the
an
object that has been created over here. I don't want it to be hanging. I need to use it again and again. So I have stored it in this variable.
right, 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 right. Got it. And actually, when I was going through with the first three recordings, so I haven't seen the video onto the or the portion for the Selenium architecture. So just wanted to know, overall, how exactly is the Selenium architecture, how it passed those calls from the, client to the server. So are we going to cover that also, Selenium overall architecture?
See, it's not yet planned, but if you want, we can cover that in the sessions coming forward.
Hmm. Yeah, because that is something, I have seen some of the question on to the Selenium architecture. What exactly is Selenium architecture? How it, interact with server. In between, there may be some of the API calls, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, uh, that is the part. And when I was going through with this, right, most of the time these days people are using Python to automate the APIs,
Hmm.
right? So can you show me maybe in the future session one of the code, maybe program on how we can automate one of the simple API using our framework?
Okay. We'll try to include it in the course.
Yeah, yeah, because I have just started with the new team, Jasprit. So in that team, we need to automate the AWS services, and we need to
Yeah.
automate lot of API services basically. So as of now, web automation is not in scope, but it's good to learn from you.
Okay.
And yeah, and last thing, as an assignment, what should I take as an assignment for today?
Currently, the assignment will be to practice these only. Take around the different websites and see that what elements are being given and whether you are able to interact with the ID and name parameters over there. Try to
Hmm.
send it and do that.
Right, right. So actually, main aim with for this, training which I have enrolled. Number one, to clear the exam, and second thing is for the interviews, to prepare for the interview so that I should look like okay, I have 2 years of experience minimum, right?
Hmm.
So something like I need to gain that much confidence. So hope you are going to cover like interviews questions also with this, as and when it is applicable, or maybe in future session.
In future sessions, maybe I can say.
Okay, sure, just wait.
Anything
Yeah.
else I can help you with?
No, that's fine. Thank you, just wait.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
This will be all for the session. I'll see you tomorrow. If there is any doubt, do let me
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
know. Bye bye.